Dutch elm disease is one of the most devastating and widespread tree diseases in the world. It was first identified in the Netherlands in 1919, hence the name Dutch elm disease. It spread rapidly across Europe and was first seen in the United States in the early 1930s.
The importance of elm trees offer habitat to a range of native insects and wildlife that depend on the trees for food, reproduction, and shelter.
Dutch elm disease is transmitted by several species of elm bark beetle. The beetles lay their eggs in the bark of decaying wood where the fungal spores also grow. When the beetles emerge, they carry the spores with them to healthy trees. So the fungus infects the xylem or the water vessels of the tree, preventing water uptake, which leads to wilting leaves and ultimately the death of the tree.
Dutch elm disease was first identified in the Netherlands in 1921 by Dutch scientist Marie Beatrice Schwartz. It was recognized in the United States in Ohio, discovered by a fellow Dutch scientist, Christine Johanna Boisman, in 1930. Since then, the disease has spread throughout North America with the exception of the inhabitable deserts of the Southwest. The pathogen, Ophiostoma nova ulmi, sporulates in the vascular system or xylem of an elm tree, blocking water flow and causing the tree to wilt. The fungi spreads throughout the tree by passive spore transport and by mycelial colonies established in the xylem. Once the roots are infected, the disease can be transmitted to surrounding healthy trees via anastasmosis. Transmission by root grafts is far more likely to occur if an affected tree is within 35 to 50 feet of healthy elms. DED is also transmitted by feeding bark beetles, specifically the European elm bark beetle, the banded elm bark beetle, and the native elm bark beetle. As they feed, Ophiostoma spores cover their body. The spores are inadvertently transmitted to healthy trees when the beetles move on. The fungus also sporulates in beetle galleries, increasing the number of vectors within an ecosystem, accelerating the rate of infection. An infected specimen presents with curling or dying yellow leaves and wilting branches. Cracked bark reveals a blue or gray discoloration of the internal wood. Dark brown spots can be seen in the xylem ring of the tree once it's cut down. 40 million American elm trees have been killed by DED. This disease persists as a majorly devastating consequence of invasive species in North America.
As seen below in the graph, one example of elm loss in communities can be seen in Milwaukee over a 40-year period.
To effectively manage Dutch elm disease, early symptom detection is crucial. Infected trees must be isolated to prevent disease spread to healthy elms. Careful removal using root graft barriers or trenches prevents accidental infection. Trenches range from 36 to 40 inches deep, halting the transmission by separating diseased and healthy trees. Infected elms are then removed and disposed of via burning or chipping to eliminate fungal spores, safeguarding our elm population.
Disease management. Communities maintain programs to manage Dutch elm disease because they have found that it's cheaper to manage the disease than to remove the large dead trees that it leaves behind. Inspection of all trees in an area several times each growing season is required. And it's actually been found that with the correct sanitation and inspection of the trees, it delays area loss between 7 and 30 years. Some long-term solutions to Dutch elm disease is developing disease-resistant elms with breeding programs and also becoming more focused on cloning elms.
The most significant impact of DED is biodiversity loss. American elms serve as shelter for a variety of species, such as woodpeckers, caterpillars, moths, bats, frogs, and owls. As the number of elms in North America decreases, the organisms they protect are displaced and forced out of an ecosystem, weakening its biodiversity. A similar trend can be seen within the food chain. Elms provide an abundance of food through their samaras, which is a nut-like seed, and leaves to smaller animals. Without them, these animals are forced out of ecosystems that can no longer sustain them. Another impact can be seen in economic costs. On communities and local governments, the removal and replacement of infected trees, along with the ongoing management and preventative measures, require significant financial resources.
A solution to Dutch elm disease is a genetically modified cultivars that are resistant to Ophiostoma nova ulmi and plant them in the wild. Due to natural selection, it is assumed that this resistant trait will be favored in the wild, allowing the offspring of these GM trees to become the dominant species of elm in North America. Ophiostoma spores do not affect trees outside of the Olmocai family, and without a host, the fungus may die out. Another solution is to implement integrated pest management. This solution works through the combined efforts of sanitation, the removal of infected trees, biological control, introduction of an infectious fungus's natural enemy, and cultural practices, such as pruning and routine tree care. IMP methods are proven to minimize the spread of disease while preserving environmental integrity. The increase in public education and awareness is a strategy we must utilize to combat Dutch elm disease. The public needs to understand how to identify DED when they come across it and know how their actions contribute to the issue as a whole. Educational campaigns can inform homeowners, arborists, and other stakeholders about early detection and preventative measures of DED. As a united front, experts and the public can work to eradicate DED in North America. Monitoring elm populations is also another strategy in preventing and combating DED. Collaborative efforts of researchers, government agencies, arborists, and community organizations will allow known elm populations across the U.S. to be monitored for any signs of flagging, which is the distinctive appearance of wilts that infected elms take on.
Through strategies and solutions, public motivation, and the tenacity of experts, we ultimately hope to preserve the elm population in North America, whether through the introduction of resistant Olmocai species or through the eradication of Dutch elm disease. Thank you!